Hello everyone and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Whitney and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order, at least when we can. I'm Tennille.
And I'm Whitney, and it's time for another catch-up episode.
Yep, we have several catch-up episodes that we need to get done before we can move on to 1983. The first one we have to do is Eres una vez?
Érase una vez.
Érase una vez.
Because this is a Spanish film.
Yes, from 1950.
Yes. The title directly translates to Once Upon a Time.
Very generic title, but alright.
And I want to say thank you to Michael Ray for finding this movie for us.
Yeah.
Finding it and the subtitle audio track so that we could slap them together and actually watch the movie and know what's going on.
Yeah. This film actually has an interesting history. There's a bit of a reason we weren't able to find it before. The black and white version that we watched is actually, was actually the only version of it for a long time. It was considered lost for decades, but the black and white version was thought to be the only version still available, and it was at the Spanish Cinema Museum.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2015, Filmoteca de Barcelona studio started working on a full restoration of the film and completed it in 2022. So that full restoration included making it a color version of the film again.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We didn't watch that version.
No, we didn't, but it is out there.
Awesome. Well, we watched the black and white version, and it was certainly a film.
Yeah.
This is not the first Spanish film we've seen, so
It's not the first Cinderella story we've seen.
Yeah, I guess we should say this is a Cinderella story. It's an adaptation of that fairy tale. Hilariously enough, this is also the same year that the Disney version came out.
Which is also why, fun fact, this film is just titled Once Upon a Time.
And not Cinderella.
Because they couldn't use the name Cinderella. Because Disney, yeah.
Disney had already used it. Okay. So, I have a question for you, Tennille.
Question away.
How can we tell the Cinderella story while not including the female characters except when absolutely necessary?
Well, Whitney, watch this film and you'll find out.
Yup.
I literally wrote down this film is allergic to women.
Yeah, which is a shocking thing when you're trying to tell a Cinderella story because, most of the important characters are women.
Yeah, we'll go like
Cinderella,
30 minutes.
the fairy godmother, the evil stepmother, the evil stepsisters. Those are like 5 of the 6 important characters from this story. The other one being the prince, and he's just kind of there.
Yeah, like arguably the only male characters of any import in the story of Cinderella is the prince,
And dad.
the king, and maybe Cinderella's father.
Yeah, and you can give or take 1 or 2 of those characters.
Yeah, like you can easily cut most of those.
But this movie decides to go the opposite direction and downplay all girl parts as much as possible and just put in like 5-10 minute segments of not those characters doing random things that don't actually progress the story at all.
Yeah.
So how about we get into a plot synopsis?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, Cinderella's dad is alive, but he's going away on a big trip. And way back in the 15th century or whenever this happened, that means he's going to be gone for months.
Right.
Or years, potentially.
Yeah.
Or never come back.
Yeah.
So, right before he goes, he remarries the stepmom, which, in this version of the story, was set up by some random dude that hangs out with the stepmom, maybe her brother or something.
Yeah.
And he's just shoehorned into this movie, and he's the one that's important when it comes to the step family.
Yeah. yeah, for some reason, again, the male character takes precedent. But also, I think it's always important to point out whenever you're doing a Cinderella story, what kind of variant here do we have on the evil stepmother and stepsisters? Because, there's they're wicked and therefore that makes them ugly people. There's no, they're actually just ugly and we hate them. And then there's like there's different flavors of wicked stepmother and stepsisters,
Mm-hmm.
And this one definitely leans into they're fat, they're ugly,
They're evil.
they're evil. Like, which is just kind of disappointing. But then you add in the fact that the women in this film are barely shown at all. And I'm just like, this film really doesn't like women.
No, it doesn't. So they come into Cinderella's life and they treat her like shit and force her to do all the work and stuff like that. Even though this family has 4 servants, they don't do diddly shit. Cinderella has to do everything. But these servants, they feel real bad about Cinderella having to do all this work. And instead of helping her do the work, they decide that at midnight, they're going to wander around in bed sheets pretending to be ghosts and scare the step family. And then the random guy who's with the step family, he fights the ghosts.
And this is at least a 15-minute segment.
Yeah. Which doesn't involve Cinderella at all, or really even the Steps family. It's just these other new characters that they added doing asinine stuff.
I was trying to say this earlier, but you can... I'm pretty sure there are several points in this movie where we go 15, 20 minutes before we see Cinderella again.
Uh-huh.
She is in this film so little.
Mm-hmm. Cinderella in this movie is sad.
Yes.
And not because she has to do all this physical manual labor that is below her station. It's because her mom's dead, and she loves her mom so dearly much, and that's the only reason she's sad. But she's sad all the time.
Okay. I think we've complained enough about different aspects of this movie. I can talk about this now. I feel like you can tell a good storyteller from a bad storyteller based on how they handled the story of Cinderella. Yes, Cinderella's mom is dead, and that's an important part of Cinderella's story. However, that is not the only... Cinderella's mom dying is not a personality trait of Cinderella's. It's something that happened, and now she is in a different, difficult circumstance, partially because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it when female characters' only character trait is being sad about another character's death.
Yeah.
It's just extremely bland, and it's okay for a character to be sad about that, but that can't be the only thing about the character. Because the only other thing that Cinderella has going on is that people like her and she's pretty.
Yeah. She is not a character in her own film.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. The royal ball is coming up to celebrate the prince.
Yes.
So Cinderella's not going to be allowed to go.
Right.
So one of the 4 servant guys decides he's going to do something about this.
Yeah.
So he wanders off into the woods and finds a wizard. And you might be asking, wait, what's going on? Just hold on. He gets a potion from this wizard. And this potion, he is going to slip into the Step family's drinks. And then they'll act like morons at the ball, showing that they're utter fools and they'll definitely not become the new princess.
Uh-huh. Because this helps Cinderella how?
So that potion is given to one of the other 4 servants, and this other servant guy, he's kind of really not smart. So he gives it to the horses instead of the stepsisters. Mm-hmm. And so on the way to the ball, the horses have a 3-minute dance sequence.
Yep.
Where's Cinderella? Doesn't matter. This all was so much more important than Cinderella in her own story.
We just spend time watching horses dance. At one point, one of the horses is a tree.
Yeah, he buries himself in the ground and then grows back out of the ground as a tree. I really
don't like it.
It's very weird.
I should say something positive about this movie. The animation's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. The animation itself is enjoyable enough. It's just the storytelling itself is very poor.
Yeah.
Then, while the horses are dancing, like it's interspersed with it, the godmother finally shows up for Cinderella. And these scenes go by like this because this is not important, apparently.
Yeah.
She hurriedly helps her magic away her tasks and then gives her the carriage out of the pumpkin and some lizards and a couple of rats for the horses.
I cannot emphasize how much these scenes are like rushed through. Like they don't establish anything that is going on in these scenes before it's like, all right, let's go, let's hurry this up. You know what this is.
I'm trying to, in my synopsis here, go into more detail than I often would. Just to show and emphasize how little of the screen time is actually spent on our main character.
Yeah.
So anyways, she literally zooms to the ball. And then she's at the ball and there's random dance sequences and I don't know. She has a good time with the prince and then she has to run away because it's midnight.
I feel like even at the ball, we spend more time listening to other people talk about Cinderella
her
and
than
the prince
her herself.
than seeing her. Like, every chance the movie has to not focus on her, it takes it. Even when it's just Cinderella and the prince alone, the camera zooms up instead to focus on some birds.
Yeah, a pair of birds flirting instead of the humans. Because they just they can't show Cinderella.
And then the clock strikes midnight and it's like, oh, right.
Right, she gotta go.
Back to Cinderella.
And then she gets a sad song, which I wasn't paying attention to at all. But like, wow, she gets a song. And then we go to the prince, and he very importantly has an important scene where he takes the glass slipper to the local alleyway of tailors. Shoemakers. And this row of like 8 shoemaker men sing a song about how they've never seen a shoe like this before.
Yeah. Like, again, you could just skip, like, you could get to the part of the story where it's like, oh, all the maidens in the land need to try. No. Fuck those maidens.
We're singing a song.
We have to talk about how men feel about this shoe.
And then we expedite the process of them trying shoes on people in a montage. And then and then they're just suddenly at Cinderella's house.
There's no establishing shot of them arriving. There's no, like, the stepsisters trying on the shoe.
Yeah, we even skip the stepsisters trying on the shoes. And then they're like, oh, what about her? And then they're like, well, she couldn't possibly have been at the party. And then they repeat the same line 3 times of Cinderella saying, maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, maybe I was there. 3 times within 30 seconds.
Same dialogue, same animation.
Like, she's answering slightly different questions each time, but it's like, why? And then she tries on the slipper, and then happily ever after. And then they don't even show the wedding. They have to instead have just the narrator come back in and explain everything as we just pan over like the city.
Right.
Because again, we cannot show Cinderella in her own film. Also, something I forgot earlier on in the movie, instead of showing the step family being mean to Cinderella, they instead have an extended sequence where they show the step family being mean to a cat who is the pet of Cinderella instead.
Yeah,
Again, it takes every chance it can to not focus on Cinderella.
Yeah, I don't even know really that the step family and Cinderella interact more than once, if they even do.
I don't know if they have an actual conversation where they are talking to each other. There are instances where they're both in the same room, but either A, the narrator will tell us what happened between them, or B, they'll just talk passively past Cinderella.
Which, could be a good indication to show, like, the abuse that Cinderella is receiving from them. But this is just, like, these are the four main characters, like Cinderella, the stepmother, and the two stepsisters. These are your four main characters, and they never speak to each other.
It's baffling, really.
It's so baffling. What's also crazy about this is that by the time we hit the extended ghost scene, I was like, alright, I don't think this movie has any surprises for me. I think I get exactly what this is now. And I was mostly right. Aside from one really bizarre sequence in Cinderella's song, where suddenly, like, it takes a really surreal approach, and I don't know what it's going for, but the castle rises up out of the ground.
And then her hands reach in, and then her hands fall off of her limbs and turn into a pair of wings and then fly after the castle.
Yeah.
It was very weird and surreal.
And then, that's it. Like, the lyrics don't seem to explain at all what's going on. I don't know. That was the one real oddball. Really threw me for a loop.
For sure.
I also want to clarify, I know we just spend a lot of time kind of yelling about this movie. I didn't hate this. I think it was fine for its time, in particular. It definitely feels like it's very inspired by, like, Betty Boop and Snow White. It definitely has that problem a lot of older movies have of putting its focus on the wrong things story-wise. But these animated sequences by themselves aren't bad. It's just, as a whole, it's extremely baffling why they chose to make a story about Cinderella when they obviously did not want to do that.
They didn't want to tell a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
They wanted to tell a story about cartoon men doing silly, goofy things.
Yeah. And horses dancing.
Yeah.
So yeah, this came out the same year as Disney's Cinderella.
Like I said earlier.
Yeah. It was directed by Alejandro Sariki Pellicer.
Pellicer?
Uh-huh.
While I generally feel like I have a better understanding of how Spanish words are pronounced, we probably still pronounce that incorrectly.
Yeah. Supposedly had around 97 employees with a budget of 4 million pesetas. I'm not sure exactly how that translates to a US dollar or what the inflation of that would be over time.
Here's a rough approximation.
Thank you.
Thank you, editing Whitney.
And yeah, obviously when it came out, it was compared pretty unfavorably
to Disney's Cinderella. Unsurprising.
Yeah. The main thing that people seem to give to this movie over Disney's Cinderella is, like, the costuming being more accurate, which I'm like, Okay.
Sure. That wasn't an issue.
Like, alright. But, like,
Again,
I think it's
the
very
animation was
interesting when
fine.
we can find a film that has been considered lost, because it's always a damn shame when that kind of thing happens. And I think it's great that this film has been preserved both in the Spanish Cinema Museum and has been restored. That is amazing. I hate to see films lost, even if I don't think their execution is that well. That's, like, besides the point. These films should still be around. We should still be able to appreciate them, no matter their quality.
You know, I think that's a great segue for next episode.
Wow.
So join us back here next time as we jump forward 1 year to 1951, and we watch a movie that was being restored when we started this project and has since been fully restored.
Wow.
And it is probably of dubious quality still.
Oh.
But we will be watching Amazon Symphony, the very first animated film from Brazil.
Ooh. All right. Okay, cool.
See you guys then.